Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from third group. Before we presentation, let me introduce myself. My name is Laksmita Devi, and my partner is Anafi Ananda Okcharia and Rifdah Daniatul Haq. We are going to explain about the criteria good materials in ELT textbooks. The first introduction, what is the material development? Materials development is both a field of study and a practical undertaking. As a field, it studies the principles and procedure of the design, implementation, and evaluation of language teaching materials. As an undertaking, it involves the production, evaluation, and adaptation of language teaching materials by teachers for their own classroom and by the materials whether for sale or distribution. Ideally, these two aspects of material development are interactive in that the theoretical studies inform and are informed by the development and use of classroom materials. Ideally, these two aspects of material development are interactive in that the theoretical studies inform and are informed by the development and use of classroom materials. The next definition, what are materials? Materials include that anything which can be used to facilitate the learning of language. They can be linguistic, visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, and they can be presented in print through live performance or display, or on cassette, DVD, CD-ROM, or the internet. And according to the research, the materials can be instructional, experiential, elicitative, or exploratory, in that they can inform learners about the language. They can provide experience of the language in use. They can stimulate language use, or they can help learners to make discovery about the language for themselves. And the next, how should materials be developed? The teacher managed to inspire each other with ideas, to maintain creative energy, to relate their materials to the actual learners who were going to use them, and to suggest useful improvements to each other's materials. All this was achieved to a far greater degree than I have ever managed when writing a course book by myself, with a partner, or in a small team working at a distance from each other. And all this was achieved because a large group of enthusiastic teachers were working together for a short time.
Friends, I will continue our presentation. Laksmita has explained about how should the material develop, and then I will continue about what is the future of materials development. There is hope about the future materials development. When the teacher wants to develop the material, they should pay attention of some aspect. The material should be greater personalization and localization of materials. And then also, when develop the material, it should be greater flexibility of materials and creativity in their use. And also, when develop the material, the teacher should be more respect to the learner's intelligence, experience, and communicative competence. The material should be also more effectively engaging the contents. A greater emphasis on multicultural perspective and awareness it is also important. And then the material should be give more opportunities for the learners with experiential and especially kinesthetic learning style that preference. Okay, next I will explain about the fifth slide. The fifth slide is about definition of materials evaluation. According to Tomlinson 2013 to 22, materials evaluation is a procedure that involves measuring the value or potential value of a set of learning materials. It involves making the judgment about the effects of the materials on the people using them. So, the materials evaluation, the purpose is to know how the judgment from the people that have used the material. Or in other words, material evaluation means a principal process of providing useful information about the targeted materials in order to select and or develop them in reliable and valid approach. Material evaluation, it tries to measure some or all of the following. So in the material evaluation, it measures some aspect. The first one is about the appeal of the materials to the learners, the credibility of the materials to the learners and teachers and also administrators, the validity of the materials, the reliability of the materials, the ability of the materials to interest the learners and also the teachers, the ability of the materials to motivate the students, and the last one, the material evaluation also tries to measure the value of the materials in terms of short-term learning. Okay, this is about definition of material evaluation. And the next slide, this is about principle or criteria in material evaluation. There are some principle and also criteria in material evaluation, but in the way greater validity and reliability can be achieved and fewer mistakes are likely to be made. In developing a set of principles, it is useful to consider the following. I found another source about the principle of material evaluation. There are many published checklists. However, Tomlinson 2013 suggests that most of lists are subjective and propose a way of developing criteria for material evaluation. The first one is brainstorming a set of universal criteria based on principle of second language acquisition and the result of the classroom observation. The next, subdividing some criteria. And then the third, monitoring and revising the list of universal questions, categorizing the list. And the fifth, developing media specific criteria, if the voices are easily distinguished and etc. The sixth, developing content specific criteria, developing age specific criteria, developing local criteria. It means different criteria will apply in different circumstances. And then the ninth, developing other criteria like culture specific. And then 10th, trial criteria, and the last one is about conducting the evaluation. This is the principle or criteria of material evaluation according to Tomlinson 2013. Okay, the next slide will be presented by Rifdah Diniatul Haq. So time is yours.
Okay, I wanna explain about the types of material evaluation. There are three types of Material evaluation, first is the pre-use evaluation, second one is will-use evaluation, and the third one is post-use evaluation. And next to the learning theory. Material which address the learner in an informal, personal voice are more likely to facilitate learning than those which use a distinct, formal, and voice. Features which seems to contribute to a successful personal voice include such aspects of orality as first, informal discourse feature, for example, contracting forms, ellipses, and informal axis. And the second one is the active rather than the passive voice. And the third one is concreteness. Example is the types of anecdotes, and the next is inclusiveness, and then superiority, sharing experience and opinions, and then sometimes including casual redundancies rather than always being concise. And next is the criteria of the assessment of learning material. There are 5 of criteria to assess the learning material. First is, to what extent are the material related to the wants of the learners, and then to what extent are the materials likely to help the learners to achieve, and then to what extent are the material likely to stimulate emotional engagement, and the last is, to what extent are the materials likely to promote visual imaging. Okay, thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.